From Lessons in Tanya here as a summary and clarification.
Okay.
We read it already, but I'll read it again. As explained by the Rebbe-Chasid, that's the previous Rebbe, quote, only if he will prepare himself towards his hashgad with great preparation and intense effort. Those words are from the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe is saying that if you prepare yourself with great effort and intense effort, great preparation and intense effort, can you benefit from the tzaddik's love, faith, love, and fear. So the previous Rebbe comments on this, on his great-grandfather's words. This means that every man's task is to vest this faith, awe, and love within his physical, everyday life in his observance of Torah and mitzvahs. You should take what you know about the tzaddik's love for God, his fear for God, his faith in God, and use it in your daily life. It would also seem, from the continuation of his explanation, that the meaning of, and this again is from the Alter Rebbe, if you have labored, believe it. He brings Yogaita umatzosa. Says the note, is that the individual then gains a great deal more than what he actually labored for. Very much like an unexpected find. Right? When the Gemara says in Megillah, Yogaita v'lo matzosa al taimin. Lo yogaiti umatzosi al taimin. Yogaiti umatzosi taimin. It's a Gemara Megillah. If a person says, I didn't put forth any effort, and I found, and I don't believe him, it's not true. If a person says, I put forth a lot of effort, and I didn't find, don't believe him. But if a person says, Yogaiti, I worked hard, umatzosi, and I found, time and believe him. That's the literal Gemara. The previous Rebbe has a teaching that the word matzosi, I found, refers to a hidden, lost object, right? A metzia. I mean, we use the word metzia in the Jewish community as a bargain. But that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the Yiddish. The word metzia is a Hebrew word, but it's been adapted by the Yiddish language to mean a bargain. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Hebrew word matzah, a finding.
Right.
Shalom, when you find something, it's unexpected. In other words, it's more than, in a way, it does actually go together with metzia. It's more than you bargained for. Right? You lost your car keys. And you said the segula, and it's still not coming up. You've given up hope. All of a sudden, you're walking and you find it, or someone finds it. You say to yourself, I gave up already. Wow. In other words, you're getting back more than what you thought, what you expected. So when we say Yagaita umatzasa, when you will put forth effort, when you have harevanya is the Yiddish word for effort, harevanya, hareving, to put effort and diligence and work hard and toil, not only will you get a positive result, you'll get a result that's beyond what you expected to get. You'll find a metzia. So the Rebbe says that the Alter Rebbe, the previous Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe, by employing this Chazal here in Igeres HaKodesh 27, teaches us that if we will work hard in our service of Hashem and Torah mitzvahs and everything else, we will get more of the tzaddik's faith, love, and yirah, fear, more than the expected amount. You hear that, Hillel? You guys are, it looks like, this is a fascinating, one-of-a-kind interpretation that is not the regular standard Talmudic interpretation. This is an insight into the psychology of effort. Okay? Here, we could teach psychology something. Chasidus, Tanya can teach psychology something, in many things, but in this area you can teach it also. That when you put forth effort, you will not only succeed, but beyond your wildest imaginations. And I think that this is such an important thing in life, to give a person the willingness and ability and koyach to work hard. To work hard. You know, especially today's generation, you know, everything is the push of a button, the plastic of a credit card, the instantaneous pleasure of a cell phone on your, with you, where you can see the entire world and communicate, and it's all wonderful, but it comes very easy. So you have to understand that nothing can replace effort. Nothing. Because, for example, even with a smartphone and with all the gadgets, if you want to learn, if you want to do more, you have to learn. You have to put forth effort. For example, I'm trying to figure out a way how to record my teachings without having to do a 2 to 3 steps from Facebook to upload to YouTube. It takes a lot of time, energy, effort, patience, internet strength. You know, it's a big headache, a much bigger headache. So I'm working now to see if there's a way with today's technology and programs where you could accomplish the same thing in one step. So my point being, here is an example of modern technology, which is relatively easy. And even within that realm, there is the idea of what? Of effort. So let's continue now. The Rebbe says, through his toil, successive generations of offshoots are bound up with their source within the essential aspect of the Ruach, which is raised to the level of the Shama in the Garden of Eden. The disciples of the Tzaddik, the students, thus benefit not only from his Ruach, insofar as it remained in the lower Garden of Eden, but also from his essential Ruach that has incorporated within itself to the Shama. Surely, this is the gain that far outstrips the individual's effort. We cannot, Yoni, experience Neshama. It's a very, very lofty level beyond us. But when we bind ourselves, Hillel, to the Tzaddik, and the Tzaddik does have that experience, we get a glimpse of that experience too.
What about Shabbos?
What about Yom Kippur? That doesn't work that way. I mean, Shabbos is Shabbos, but Shabbos, we're not. Who says Shabbos is the level of Gan Eden Ha'elyon? I mean, you know, we're talking here about specific levels. Maybe it is. I'm just saying. I don't know. It doesn't stand in this context. Are you asking if Shabbos one can experience something higher? Of course. That's why we have in the Neshama Yeseda. But here, Yoni, we're identifying a specific issue, the level of so-called neshama. You know what that level is? What's the level of so-called neshama? It's the level of moach, that your mind gets excited too. On Shabbos, if you eat too much chonk, your mind is not getting excited. Your bedroom's getting excited, or your couch is getting excited. But not your mind. So it depends. If you eat a lot of chont and kugel and stuff your face, and you feel very heavy and sluggish, your mochin is not operating. I don't care. Shabbos, not Shabbos. You're asleep and you're a deadhead. But excuse the expression. But if you're in tune with Shabbos, and you eat a little bit, and you don't overeat, and you think about what you're eating, and you make it an experience, then you can have a very, very special Shabbos. You know, don't think that just because it's Shabbos, all of a sudden the person is a different person. The makif, the overwhelming, the superficial energy of Shabbos is there. That's true. That's true. But you have to make yourself a vessel for it. Let's continue. So he says, surely this is the gain that far outstrips the individual's effort. This level of energy, as the Rebbe-Chasid concludes, is not integrated internally within his students, but merely encompasses them in a transcendent manner. Nevertheless, it is so powerful that it enables even their successive generations of offshoots to produce unending generations of further offshoots. And you should know, we saw this also in the last 100 years, where people came from Russia and Poland and Hungary, and the great grandparents belonged to different Hasidic rabbis. Hillel is one example, and 100 years later, he returns to his great grandparents. 100 years went by, and there was a lapse. I don't mean by him 100 years, but by millions of people. So what we're learning here is that the efforts that 100 years ago, our great-grandparents who were Hasidic, and they identified with different Rebbes, that created a makif, and that makif hovers over the successive generations, and one day it will come to bear fruit. You understand? So our great-great-grandparents did something special for us, although there might have been for many years a blockage, a concealment,
Rabbi, you're talking about people that their ancestry would be from Chassidim, like mine, Hillel.
Yeah.
But what about real Litvaks? I'm not talking about people today that.
Well, look. Real Litvaks, had an option, and they still have an option to join a Hasidic movement. No one. That's up to them. I can't. Let me say this. It's not that they don't have. It's not that the Vilna Gaon, the Chaim Vlozhner, these are great people. But we're talking here about an energy that that the great grandfather or the Chassidish Rebbe, he had in mind his Chassidim in a way that was not just a student and a teacher. Okay, we're going into another whole discussion, the difference between a student and a teacher and a Rebbe and a Chassid. That's really what you're asking about. It's a very good question and point. A Rebbe, a student and a teacher is very powerful and very important, but it's not a Rebbe and a Chassid. I think I told you the other day, right? The Baal Shem Tov wrote down in his siddur across the page from Shema Koleinu. Maybe I told it to someone else. Did I tell you that at the Chabad library you could when they have a display of the Baal Shem Tov siddur, which Chabad has in its library in Crown Heights in 770, near 770, I saw this with my own eyes. So I saw a display that on the page of the siddur, we had Shema Koleinu. On the other side was because the siddur was handwritten. On the other side is written names of the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov, and one of them is Reb Michael Zlotchev, because we know his name and his mother's name. So I recognized the name. Well, why did the Baal Shem Tov do that? Why did he do that? Because he thought of them when he said Shema Koleinu. Now, that's a novelty. First of all, it's a novelty even in the Hasidic world, but again, I didn't do a study to tell you that there was never first of all, Yoni, before Chasidus, there was no such a thing as Litvaks and Hasidim. It was just all Yidden. You understand? So I can't tell you that the Marsha, the Pnei Yeshua, or people who lived 400, 500, 600, 700 years ago never did that. I can't tell you that. But what I could tell you is that the Baal Shem Tov did do it. And what does that show you? That points to the fact that a Rebbe is thinking of his Hasidim in a way that far exceeds the way a Rav or a teacher thinks of his Talmidim. And please don't take this wrong. There are very good Rabbonim and teachers that are like Rabbi Malinowitz Olav Shalom. He wasn't a Chassid, but trust me, he was so thoughtful of all of his congregants and many more, as we discussed in our past classes. So I'm not belittling that, but that doesn't equal yet the soul-like feelings and concern that a Rebbe has for Hasidim. It's a whole different genre of experience. It's on a different level. That's all. It's just a different level, and it comes from the makeup of Hasidim and a Rebbe versus the makeup of a Talmud to a teacher. I'll give you another example. Okay, something I wrote about in my book on Rabbi Hutner when I interviewed. I interviewed a very, very close person who told me he was a Ben Bayis. A Ben Bayis means someone who lived practically in the home of Rabbi Hutner when he was growing up. Rabbi Hutner told him, he was looking to marry. So Hutner said to him, when you become a chassan, I want you to let me know before you announce you're being a chassan. The day came, and he became a chassan, and he did not, for whatever reason, I think it was in the middle of the night, he got back at 2, 3 in the morning. So he said, I'm not going to call Rabbi Hutner now. The next day he called him, and Rabbi Hutner, gave it to him over the head. He said, I told you to call me anytime. He probably was up learning, you know what I mean? Well, whatever the case. So then I asked this is, this isn't hearsay. This is me and him talking on the phone. I know his name, but I'm not going to say his name. So I asked him, did you consult Rabbi Hutner whether or not you should marry this girl that you married? He said, no. I said, by us in Lubavitch, without the Rebbe giving a bracha or an answer about the shidduch that you wrote in about, you didn't go under you didn't announce your engagement. And there were cases where the Rebbe did not answer, and a non-answer from the Rebbe was equivalent to a no. And I asked him, you tell me that you were so close to Rabbi Hutner, and many others spoke about him as a Rebbe-like figure. So I asked him that question. He said to me, I and my friends and we didn't look at Rabbi Hutner as a Rebbe. We looked at him as a tremendous teacher who we were close to, and we discussed things with him. But to go and say that we believed that his answers and advice is God sent, we didn't have that belief. Okay? I think that should answer for you this whole discussion. Okay? And I'm telling you that out of all the Rosh Hashiva in America, Hutner was probably had the closest students. They said in the Litvak world that the students of Rabbi Hutner were like Hasidim. That whatever he wanted, whatever the respect they had for him, even today with my book, the only book that I experienced that they tore down posters about the book was the book on Rabbi Hutner in Flatbush. They tore down my signs. Why? Because they felt that I'm not saying that he's the tzaddik of the generation, and I'm speaking about him as an equal to the Rebbe and an equal to Chabad, and that's belittling for them. And I'm not going to go into their philosophies, but I never had that with Lakewood. I didn't have it. I don't think I'll have it with Ponovich. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have it with Torah Vadas, but only them. So, and notwithstanding their fiery zealotry, their zealousness for Rabbi Hutner, the same close student says to me, I didn't consider his advice godly. Now, if that doesn't tell you that the Litvak mode does not look at their teacher in Rosh Hashiva as a kind of, you know, I'm not going to say God, Chas v'Shalom, but you know what I mean. Whereas every Chassid of every Rebbe, forget about Chabad. Chabad, it's highlighted. In Slonim, it's highlighted. But take Baviv and Satmar and Belz, they look at their Rebbe as the God's word. So there is this very basic difference between a student and a Rosh Hashiva and Rabbi relationship versus the relationship between a Chassid and a Rebbe. So when we talk here about, very good that you asked that, Yoni, that when we talk about the offshoots of the great-grandparents, so you asked, well, didn't the Litvaks have their rabbis? Yeah, but it was rabbis, Rabbanim, Rosh Hashiva, but no one would say, I'm not going to get married because my Rav didn't agree with the choice of Shidduch I made. No one would say that. But I don't mean no one, but most won't say that because they don't look at it as the God's word. Whereas the standard chassid, if the Baba Rebbe told a chassid who came to him and said, ba 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 ba, and I'm thinking you're marrying, and he says, I don't think you should marry him, a real chassid of the Rebbe, of the Baba Rebbe, would not marry. Now in Lubavitch, it's 100-fold more. In Slonim, it's much more. Certain Chasidus, they take the words of the Rebbe as more godly. I mean, but overall, the model of Chassid and Rebbe lends itself for that experience. Whereas the model of a teacher to a student to a teacher, as great as the teacher is, as an example of Rabbi Hutner or Rabbi Melinowitz, but still, when it comes to a certain area, it's like, hey, this is my area and I make a decision. And that's why, my friends, it's not easy to be a chassid. To be a chassid, it's not about, grabbing food from the Rebbe's table and getting a handout if you need a handout. No. Being a chassid is a lot of work. And at the end of the day, it's submitting to what you believe is a higher power vis-a-vis the Rebbe. You look at the Rebbe as a conduit for Hashem's will, and that's a tremendous commitment, and it takes a lot. And from the outside, what does it look like? You're giving up your free will, but you're not. But it looks that way. You understand? So. We took a few minutes to go on a tangent, but I think it's important. David, did you follow what I was saying?
I actually was out for part of it, but yeah, I understood what you were saying. Yeah, very well. Okay.
Let's now continue. Hillel, any questions on that or clear?
Oh, let's go forward.
Okay.
We want more.
V'hine yesh od b'chinas ha'od le'talmidav. He says there's another kind of illumination from the tzaddik to his disciples, to his students. However, this type of illumination doesn't vest itself truly in their minds, as in the case with the first kind of illumination that derives from the ruach of the tzaddik, whereby his faith, fear, and love are intellectually integrated, internalized within the students. But this is rak meira aleim el maila. It only radiates over them from above, encompassing and transcending them. For its very loftiness inhibits it from descending and being integrated within them. It's too awesome. This stems from the ascent of the tzaddik's ruach and the neshama to the source from which it was hewn, which it came from. The hainu, yes.
So is the implication of that sentence when he says rucho v'nishmaso, since the nefesh remains in the kever with the body, the ruach and the neshama can return higher to its place. And so we're talking about the separation of the nefesh from the ruach from the neshama here.
Yeah, but that he said much earlier. Here he's emphasizing that the ruach and the neshama ascend upwards. The nefesh remain. He's not even addressing nefesh here, because nefesh, he said earlier, it remains below.
Right. Well, that's why I'm saying, because we've already dealt with nefesh. Now we're talking about the ability of the ruach and the neshama to ascend to a higher place.
Yes, but again, he said even that he said earlier. He's bringing back that point of ruach and neshama ascending higher. So he says that's why all you're going to get from the ruach and the neshama is only a makif experience, is an encompassing experience. Why? Because ruach and neshama has gone up instead of going down like nefesh. Are we on the same page, Hillel?
I think so.
Okay. Now, where is this place? Look what he says. Dahainu, it is lachakal tapuchin kadishin. I love those words. The holy apples.
Me too.
Holy apples. Chakal tapuchin kadishin. The orchard of the holy apples. The orchard of the holy apples. We say this, Yoni, when? Come on. Hillel?
We say it as part of the Eskina Sudasa, from the Arizal and from the Zohar.
Correct. So, this is the Chakal Tapuchin Kadishin, the orchard of the holy apples. That is, in other words, this is where the Ruach and the Neshama go to. It's to the sphere of Malchus in the world of Atzilut, the divine source of souls. So in simple English, the divine source of all souls is where the Ruach and the Neshama of the Tzaddik ascends to after his passing. This ascent effects a union there between the spirituality feminine sphere of Malchus and the spirituality masculine levels of divine efflux that transcended. Basically, there is a shidduch between Malchus, which is feminine, the feminine aspect of God, and the masculine aspect. How is this created? Al yedei halos mayin minukfim. By means of the elevation of mayinuk, literally feminine waters, by means of the mortally initiated spiritual arousal, Mikol Ma'asev v'Teirosev Avidos Asher Avad Kol Yibechayev, constituted by all the tzaddik's actions, Torah, and divine service in which he engaged all the days of his life. In other words, Hillel, the fact that the tzaddik worked so hard throughout his life, he creates, after his soul goes back to its source, a tremendous unity. So in other words, it's his avodah on earth that creates after life, that when his neshama returns to Chakal Tapuchin Kadishin, the orchard of the holy apples, which means a holy place of God's, the source of souls, there's unity there. In other words, you could go back after 120 and you're in a rocky place. And people, it's like Havdil in a jail, murderers, rapists, crazies, cuckoos. You got to be careful. They don't knife you. There's a place where the neshama doesn't have peace. It needs a lot of time and a lot of rectification to get peace. But the tzaddik, shalom, who's so special on earth because he served Hashem with love and fear and faith. When his neshama returns Moshe Myers to Hashem, his neshama is in a place where it creates unity. For as we'll explain later, all of man's lifelong labors and attainments are revealed from their former state of concealment and shine forth at the time of his passing. That's why we tend to speak about people after their passing. You have to be careful not to say lies. Very damaging for the soul to say narishkeit, lies and stories. That's one of the reasons in Chabad there's no hespedim, there's no eulogies. Not just in Chabad and some other communities too, because we're very careful not to say a story, an exaggeration. It's not healthy for the soul. You're not making the soul feel any better by making up stories. I'm sorry. You're not. If you can't say the truth, and not always can you say the truth, be quiet. Or say, that may our deeds help the soul grow. Okay? There's a difference between being melamed chus. Melamed chus means speaking favorably about a person, right? We used to sell the chametz of non-religious people for Pesach without them knowing about it. Al Pidin, you're allowed to. You're allowed to be melamed chus. Now, what if they eat chametz on Pesach? God forbid. They're like stealing. So it's But the avera, the transgression of stealing, is less of a sin than the avera of eating your own chametz. So by us selling their chametz, we took them out of the category of eating their own chametz. So that's called melamed chus. You have a right, one second, Moshe. You have a right to be favorable towards someone else. Yes, Moshe?
Don't we learn from certain Rebbe Rebbe's, like I know Rebbe-Chasid said, I don't know if it's Rebbe-Chasid, that tzaddik in the next world can help in the Shama when they come to the next world, like Rebbe-Chasid said, or schlepped from Gehenna or other things. Do we learn this as a rule in Chasidus?
Yeah. I mean, this is the idea that by identifying what tzaddik throughout your life, the tzaddik will help you and your neshama later on. But that doesn't take away your own activity and avoda. You have to work on yourself. Everyone, we'll continue tomorrow. Have a great day. Seid gesund. B'suras tovos. Yes. Yes, I'll be here till Wednesday. Yes, till Wednesday, Mitzvah Shem.
For the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, believe me, just like you're in Bet Shemesh, I'm in my room. There's no difference. I ain't going out to the Super Bowl. Bye-bye.